Welcome back into the Annie Fry Show. We have a special in-studio guest right now, and I'm going to allow Tony to introduce him because Tony brought him here. So, Tony, tell us about your friend.
So this is my friend Gabe Phifer, a.k.a. St. John the Philosopher. He's been on the Dave Glover Show and the Think Tank many times. He's been on the Weekend Report many times.
I was told that from you, when you were talking about him earlier, that Dave Glover called him...
The last time he was on the Think Tank, he called him the MVP of the Think Tank.
Like, of all of the think tanks
that
ever?
day's think tank.
I was going to say, because
I mean, of all think tanks.
Like, no, I'm not taking your spot.
No,
I'm not taking
I haven't been on it
I mean, I'm sure Gabe will take that title.
I'm
sure he'll take that.
I'll own it.
But so he's been on the station a couple times.
Yeah.
But,
check out the YouTube show, St. John the Philosopher. Only one. Like, you get to St. John the PH, and it's the only thing that's there.
He's the guy.
It's the only St. John the Philosopher there. Still a very new channel.
Yeah, relatively.
Just a handful of videos up so far, about a dozen maybe ish.
Yeah,
Is that about right?
Maybe. I think I'm uploading number 18.
Okay, there
today.
you go.
Yep.
So, but just started within the last year, and I highly recommend you go check it out. Everything that's big in the news, Gabe can encapsulate everything in a 10 to 15 minute video, and it's great stuff.
So, Gabe, tell us about yourself. What about politics interests you? Culture? Setting up a YouTube channel is not easy to do, but then for some people, it's therapy to do it.
Sure,
to be able to have these feelings and to get them out.
Have an outlet.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
So tell us about that.
sure. I guess one of the reasons I did it was because I kept having these long conversations with my wife, and she's like, "Why are you talking to me about this? Just
Talk to the internet.
Talk to the world. They'll accept it more.
Go tell the internet.
Like a real wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what she said when you told her who to vote for?
No, yeah, exactly. That's how conservative women are. They just do
They
what
gotta ask
what they're
the
told.
man in their family.
Yeah, that's how it works in my house.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But really, it came out of an abundance of just wanting to talk about things in a way I didn't think was being discussed. We got to a lot of screamy back and forth in the world in terms of politics and culture, and I wanted to do a little more deep dive on what are the real issues, what's actually behind this. We can look at the surface stuff, but ultimately it comes down to values, it comes down to ideology, worldview, those type of things. So I just wanted to distill it a little bit and just come at it from the way I think.
So when I would guest host the Dave Glover Show over the years and kind of got back into doing that a handful of years ago, Gabe was one of the first people that I wanted to bring on, and then a couple of years ago got the Weekend Report and thought another great regular guest for that, because there's so many unique qualifications to speak on so many things for Gabe, because he is a black conservative. He's a MIT grad rocket scientist, legit rocket scientist.
Who isn't? Me.
And the reason that we met, he is one of the leaders at our church. He is an elder at the church and very active in the church community. So you have...
I teach Sunday school.
Yeah,
adult Sunday school.
Yeah.
So you have that very faith-based thought process along with the MIT scientist brain that some people will tell you can't be blended.
Sure.
But there's the walking manifestation.
We found the one.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, we get terrible tweets and comments from some of our black listeners that say, there are any black conservative out there is just, dancing for the man, which is a joke.
Yeah.
And, and Chris Arps I've watched Chris Arps deal with that on a weekly basis. And I've watched Gabe deal with that very well, as with people as well. So
Gabe, you were talking about a video that you're going to be putting up on your channel today, and we talked a lot yesterday about abortion. And I'm just going to prepare everybody right now. Damon's on the line, and he's holding.
Yes.
And I want Damon, don't go anywhere yet, but I'm going to let...
Don't go anywhere.
I'm going to let Gabe talk a little bit about this video, and then I'm going to bring you on, and we're going to have this discussion too. We didn't plan for Damon to be on.
No.
He just is
That's great.
wonderfully
That's great.
sitting there waiting to come on the
awesome.
show. So this video that you put together, you are comparing arguments that are made for abortion with arguments that were made for slavery.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm going to let you talk about that.
Well, sure. One of the things that occurred to me as I was listening to the arguments in favor of abortion was that they share the same ideological root, and that's the dehumanization of the object of the issue.
Yeah.
So, in order to, one of the parts of the video is like, in order to make chattel slavery work in a society that has this Christian ideal of the unity of mankind under God, right, is that you have to separate mankind. Mm-hmm. You have to make a distinction between, well, these are the mankind that God was really talking about, and these are the mankind that God meant for slaves. So in the same vein, pro-abortion proponents, they say that, well, human rights are for this class of people. And the dividing line is here, I guess at the birth canal, something magical happens.
Yeah, I've been there. It doesn't feel very magical. I mean, that's the craziest thing too, because you talk to you pick 10 liberals off the street, mm-hmm. and if they're all somewhere between pro-abortion and pro-choice, most of them will say, well, I'm not talking like third-term abortion here. So the question is, when is it okay? Oh, 24 weeks is when you want to cut it off. What happens 23 weeks and day 6?
Yes, exactly.
What changes? Because when you've been there, you're a parent. You said your baby just turned 21.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have these 3 kids, and the youngest is 2, and I those images of that beating heart on the screen are fresh in my memory, and I don't understand when I'm supposed to care about all of those hearts.
Right.
When does that happen?
Right.
And dehumanization is exactly what it is.
It's exactly what it is. And it then becomes arbitrary. Who gets to assign humanity? So a woman who wants her baby at 12 weeks, that's a baby. A woman who is conflicted about it or has financial difficulty or other thing, when she goes into Planned Parenthood, it's a clump of cells. So which is it?
That's a lot of power.
It's a lot of power for an individual.
And in many cases, that power is held the woman holds that in that clinic room, but in a lot of cases, she's not given the information to make that educated decision. And I had an experience when I was pregnant with my youngest child, when I was in the ultrasound room, and I had, previous to that, I had had a miscarriage. So I had 2 children, I had a miscarriage, and then I had my youngest. And she was telling me a story about a woman who came in at about, probably about 14 weeks, because the reason she was telling me the story is she said that this woman who had come in previously years ago was at the same place in gestation as I was. And she said that the woman wasn't even looking at the screen, like wouldn't even turn her head towards the screen.
During the ultrasound.
Yes. And the tech said, you should really look at this. And the tech had realized that one of these abortion providers was referring people to the ultrasound technician office to get a mark on how old the baby was,
right,
so that they could proceed with the abortion. Mm-hmm. And the text says to the mother, the expecting mother, you really should look at this. And she goes, I'm not going to look at it. It's just a clump of cells. And she goes, no, really, you really need to look at this. And for whatever reason, that woman, and the tech also told me, she's like, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like, medically speaking, I probably shouldn't have pushed her the second time. But the mother turned her head and looked at the screen and said, that's a baby.
Yep.
And she literally thought it was going to be like a blob.
Yeah.
And they don't know. And like you said, that woman in her mind has just decided it is one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that baby loses its life in that scenario.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. There's nothing more dangerous than power held in ignorance.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens at a lot of these clinics.
Yeah. So what else do you have in your video that's coming out today?
Well, there's that, and then let's see. There was the That's really the crux of it. I mean, a lot of the all of the issues, whether it's there is an economic issue. You don't want kids to be born in poverty, or a humanitarian issue where the quality of life of the kid would be bad, so you don't want them to enter it at all.
Yeah.
Or any one of those things. All of those things fall apart when you say this is a person.
Yeah.
One of the most recent videos on his channel really made me think of you, Annie, because I think it's titled "In Defense of Donald Trump."
Yeah.
And it's from the standpoint, Gabe's standpoint of a conservative who doesn't necessarily think that Donald Trump is the greatest person in the world, but was the right choice for president.
Yeah.
Which is
reminds
me of,
I'm very happy that he's the president.
People think that because you support his policies, that when he says something ridiculous,
that you're co-signing
that Annie is saying, I agree with that ridiculous thing you just said.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
we will call a spade here regularly, and still I'm still happy that he's the president of the United States. If he were to go out in Times Square and shoot somebody, I would not be happy about that. That would not be okay.
Yeah.
That would be bad.
That is go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not connect $200.
It's a really good breakdown of no, I don't agree with when he says this. However, because of this policy, we are way better off than the other. So
ultimately, I compare him to Godzilla. Because he might destroy part of your city, but there's another monster that he needs to take care of.
Yeah.
Let them fight.
Got it. I understand. So the walkaway movement is a big deal. And people are coming out with their stories about walking away from the Democratic Party. I'm a woman. You're a black man. We're both Democrats, right? Obviously.
We're supposed to be.
But
right?
I never walked away. I was raised conservative. And the more that I learned about politics, the more I said, this is the way I believe. And I believe this because I believe it, not because anyone told me to. I can defend every conservative belief that I have. What about you? Did you walk away, or has this been cradle to 21-year-old daughter?
Well, yeah. Well, one of the interesting things is that I think I was raised conservative. I mean, the values in my home were conservative. My dad was a Marine and he was a preacher. So the values in my house were conservative. Now, I think voting-wise, it was Democrat.
Yeah.
But I think that was because it was supposed to be. And I didn't really encounter that until I was in college. And I think, I walked away before it was cool. I'm kind of a walkaway hipster here. But I guess technically walked away. Yeah, exactly. I'm the OG walkaway. Yeah. I technically walked away at 9/11.
Yeah.
Because that's when... I wasn't really that involved in politics. I understood things. I knew my dad hated Bill Clinton because he was a liar. That was his main deal.
So that and what you're seeing right there is not even political.
No,
that's the character of a man.
Yeah, and Dad would talk about him all the time. But but he voted for Obama. But the thing is that at 9/11, I saw, I think, the party's stark difference between the party's reactions to that event.
Yeah.
And then things started to gel in my mind about what political party or what side of the political fence I was going to stand on.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It was really clear.
All right, well, can you stick around for another segment?
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, Damon, what was... Oh, you're playing that. I'm like, who's
What's
talking?
happening?
Somebody is speaking to me in a French voice. Am I really in Disney World already?
You're going to get a lot of this.
It's Lumiere.
Get used to the music and the voices in your head, because they will be around constantly.
I'd rather listen to Lumiere than Chuck Schumer.
You will sing the songs. You will sing the songs.
I will. All right. Well, Damon, hold on.